Alter Your Health podcast, Medicinal Monday. I'm Dr. Susanna Alter.
And I'm Dr. Ben.
And we're both naturopathic doctors who empower individuals to reverse disease and heal themselves through whole food, plant-based nutrition and mind-body medicine.
So as you might know already, we are working our way head to toe talking about altering your health from head to toe. And we've covered a number of topics. And if you're new to the journey, welcome. But today we've landed on our eyeballs. And of course, we covered the circulatory system, vascular health, lymphatic system, and skeletal system, which are, of course, systems throughout the entirety of our body. We talked about the brain. And that kind of sets the stage pretty nicely to talk about the eyes, because, of course, the eyes are actually extensions of the brain. And as such, there's a huge flow of microvascular flow to the eyes. That's, of course, providing the nutrients and nourishment that our retinas need to detect light and make sense of what are the signals that are coming into our brain. So the vascular health and brain health stuff, things that maybe you already listened to, definitely sets the foundation, sets the stage for today's discussion. But we're, of course, going to be talking about some additional things beyond just maintaining healthy vascular system. So should be good.
Should be good. Yeah, this is, another one of those topics where there's definitely, some eye conditions that can affect people at all stages of life, at any stage of life. But I think that eye health tends to be more of a consideration as we spend more years on this planet, as we accumulate our years. And but it's important, no matter what age you're at, to think about, okay, what are the ways that we can prevent eye issues in the future? What are the ways that we can optimize our eye health now and 50 years from now?
Of course, we can be living right now in a way that not only makes us feel great right now, but in feeling great right now helps us to feel great later. So playing the long game is, of course, very important when it comes to anything that is going on in our bodies. But yeah, you brought up, the kind of, the genetic conditions, I guess one might say, that play into vision, not necessarily eye health, but definitely vision. So we're not going to be talking that much about the vision stuff. Actually, we'll talk a little bit at the end, so, bringing up some eye exercises and such. But things like myopia or nearsightedness and hyperopia or farsightedness and astigmatism. I've got some myopia. I've got a little astigmatism. That doesn't mean that my eyes are unhealthy. It means that my vision is less than perfect, a little less than perfect, which of course can be corrected with contact lenses or glasses or, lens correcting surgeries. But yeah, this is going to be more focused around eye health, which of course includes conditions around macular degeneration, glaucoma, cataracts. These are conditions that are generally lifestyle based. Of course, there's something called retinopathy, which is just kind of the disease of the retina. And the retina, just kind of laying out the eyeball, maybe that's the first important thing to do. We've got, all the cornea and sclera and the iris and the pupil. And the iris, of course, is what allows light to come into the pupil, the black of the eye. And then once the light comes into the pupil, that light is actually sensed by the cells of the retina, the rods and cones, maybe you've remembered. And the retinal cells, of course, are sending those signals, those are called photoreceptors, sending the signals around light to the brain that makes sense of all this stuff. And oh my gosh, it's so complicated and amazing, and really just a trip to think about how vision is this experience, this immersive experience. But in any event, the health of the retina is very important, because essentially that's the health of the cells that are sensing light and making sense of the light that is coming into the eye. So yes, retinopathy, there's different subsets of retinopathy. There's, of course, diabetic retinopathy, which is, of course, due to hyperglycemia, prolonged elevated blood sugar that causes damage of that microvascular system within the retina. There's, retinopathy due to high blood pressure, retinopathy due to high cholesterol, and all of these things, high blood sugar, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, all of these things cause that microvascular injury, which, by the way, one thing that's really cool. And I remember, actually, for those who don't know, Dr. Suzanne and I were in a class together in medical school. That's kind of how we met. We were in the CPD class, but we didn't look into each other's eyes with the ophthalmoscope. But that's like, of course, some people, we practiced that, you learn that, and maybe
you and I didn't do that.
We didn't do that to each other
until we were practicing for our clinical exams, I suppose.
Yeah, we did do that.
I remember gazing into your eyes for many hours, Ben.
We did do that later on. But of course, many of you have had an ophthalmic exam where, you stare into the light and they look at your eye, and what they're looking at, which is so super cool, they're looking at your vascular system. They're looking at your retinas and the teeny little blood vessels that are embedded in your retina.
What's fascinating too is that through that eye exam, not only do we see the microvasculature on the retina, but we also can see the optic nerve. So it's literally a way, it's your pupils are like a window into your nervous system and your vascular system and so much more.
And your soul.
And your soul, of course,
your soul. So yeah, the health of that vascular system, which is essentially, reflecting the health of the retina, is really the important thing to maintain when we're talking about preventing and reversing these age-related visual issues. So macular degeneration is maybe the most common one that's associated with the degeneration of the macula, which is a part of the retina, the breakdown of those cells, the death of those cells, or the loss of optimal function of those cells that are in the macula, which is the part of the retina that's most densely packed with the photoreceptors, the rods and cones. But glaucoma is due to increased intraocular pressure, high pressure within the eye. That's, of course, a test that, your optometrist or ophthalmologist does, where they blow the little thing and it but
they blow air.
They blow air into the eye, and it's kind of a weird sensation, but increased intraocular pressure, of course, puts you at risk for all sorts of things, such as glaucoma, which can be more of an extreme thing. But that's generally due to increased blood pressure. High blood pressure is one of the main risk factors for high eye pressure, which of course makes sense. There's some anatomical things and nuances for sure when it comes to glaucoma, but maintaining healthy blood pressure, maintaining healthy vascular health is kind of like where it's at, right? So just to recap, what we mean by maintaining vascular health: nutrient dense whole plant foods, kind of shifting gears now, I guess we can, into talking about the therapeutics or the practicality. Nutrient dense whole plant foods, which of course provide all those antioxidants that are going to be quenching the free radicals that cause that oxidative injury within the vascular system, which is kind of the first stage to quote unquote endothelial dysfunction, which can cause atherosclerosis and plaquing of the microvascular system, breakage of that microvascular system, and so forth. So nutrient density is really key. That's where those buzzwords like antioxidants and vitamin C and other phytonutrients come into play. And I always find it interesting that you go into the health food store and there's the produce section in any food store, right? But there's the aisles and aisles of supplements, and there's like multiple shelves full of eye supplements, and all the stuff in the fruits and vegetables are isolated and compounded and packaged and encapsulated and sold in the aisles and the shelves of the supplement aisle. So things like lutein and zeaxanthin and vitamin C, vitamin E, different carotenoids. These are some of the most, the nutrients that support vascular health and specifically the health of the eye,
Mhm.
which of course come from the stuff in the produce section.
Right. Yeah. But, it's also important to consider how we can reduce our oxidative load in our microvascular system from the get go. Of course, we want to live in a way that's reducing our exposure to toxicity and to other compounds that are prone to create free radicals in the system. One of the reasons why whole food plant based eating is so helpful for the vascular system is because it's free of oils, which can actually become quite rancid in the system in our body when we eat them and cause endothelial damage pretty directly when we consume them. So whole food plant-based eating really helps us reduce our oxidative load, but also helps us to keep our blood pressure low. It helps us to keep our blood cholesterol low, and it helps us to keep our blood sugar in balance as well, because high blood sugar levels is extremely damaging to the microvasculature as well, which is why diabetic retinopathy is such a thing.
Right.
So,
Yeah. So there's a couple other conditions that I think are worth mentioning. Another super common one is cataracts, right? Cataracts is the cloudiness of the lens. And cataract surgery is super common and very cool. And people can just get a new lens popped in there and then see clearly after, that lens gets cloudy. So the medical advancements that allow us to correct or to swap out lenses in our eyes, pretty cool. But it's also worth noting that cataracts can be prevented. The main causes of cataracts, and I remember learning this and thinking like, shoot, I'll probably have cataracts.
oh shoot, that ship has sailed.
The main one of the main causes is oxidative damage again, but specifically from UV exposure, a lot of sunlight. So sun eye protection, wearing sunglasses is helpful for that. And I spent like most of my life up until the last few years not wearing sunglasses,
Growing up in Arizona
and just kind of staring at the sun, not literally, but of course the sun is healthy and we should be looking at the sun. In fact, when it's really low on the horizon, sunrises and sunsets, very healthy to look at the sun. So it's kind of that balance. So but anyways, back to cataracts. The increased UV damage can lead to cataracts. Any other sort of like trauma to the eye can lead to more likelihood of developing cataracts. And then general nutritional deficiencies. So this is where maybe I have a chance, right? Because maybe I'm making up for the potential UV damage by just really loading up in those antioxidants, specifically those same things, the vitamin C, vitamin E, and the beta carotene, which is of course vitamin A precursor, and other phytonutrients that are rich in antioxidant properties.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so cataracts, one of those things that I kind of put it in a different category than the glaucoma and age-related macular degeneration, just because it's caused by some of the similar things. Like some of those things can also be causing or exacerbating the development of cataracts. But at the same time, cataracts can develop in otherwise healthy eyes, generally speaking, just due to that UV exposure. So if we have cataracts, it's not like, oh my gosh, what else is going on in the body? But generally, when people have macular degeneration and glaucoma, it's generally assumed that there's some level of insulin resistance, diabetes, high cholesterol, cardiovascular disease, these kind of comorbidities that are coexisting along with these eye conditions.
Right.
And then another thing that I don't have in our notes here, but I think it's worth talking about, and that's dry eyes.
Oh yeah, dry eyes. It's so true. Yeah.
So what?
Well, and dry eyes definitely
Yeah.
gets worse as people age. But But what would you like to say about dry eyes? Because Ben actually, I had a busy morning. I was out and about, so Ben prepared these notes.
Suzanne, if you didn't pick up on it, Suzanne's just sitting here kind of nodding along and being the cheerleader.
I'm the commentator.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, of course, dry anything, I think about hydration, and of course, when we have dry eyes, then we're more susceptible to eye infections, and because the mucus and tears in our eyes are a protective barrier. So hydration can be really helpful. And I also think about just kind of the stress and strain on the eye from potential nutritional deficiencies as well. So hydration and nutrition, that's what I think about for dry eyes. But, it goes without saying that we're not ophthalmologists or optometrists or anything like that. That's like a huge subspecialty that goes really deep. So we're looking at all of this from kind of a global perspective, which is, of course, I think very helpful, because a lot of the specialists get super reductionistic and forget about, like, oh, are you drinking water? Like, do you eat carrots and papaya and mangoes and bananas and leafy greens and all the good, nutrient dense fruits and veggies? So yeah, we're looking at this stuff from a more global perspective. But yeah, in terms of dry eye, yeah, nutrition and hydration. And, it's interesting that, of course, like, you can do the eye drops and stuff, but that's a clear, like, why are the eyes dry? And I think we should consider, these kind of underlying stressors that we might be putting on our system.
Mm-hmm.
So lastly, as we're wrapping up, I think it's worth talking about things beyond nutrition, beyond hydration, beyond our kind of biochemistry. And that's the relationship that we have with the world through our vision. And I find it super interesting that, of course, like in our world today, if we consider 2022 versus 100 years ago, there's a lot more up close, in your face concentration, of course, on screens, reading things. There's a lot less nature. There's a lot less broad perspective stuff. And that has a big implication, or many implications, on our general nervous system and general vision and the muscles of our eye, which there are, by the way, there are tons of muscles that control, of course, the way that our eyes track across the horizon when we're looking at stuff, but also the constriction and dilation of our pupils, so that we can take light in proportionately and as we need to. So I think about what it might look like to return to nature in a way that allows us to be outside and look at things from, like, that are natural versus artificial, natural light versus artificial light, natural movement versus, like, artificial movement, like video games and reading things and TikToks and Instagram reels, and just kind of like in your face, right up close. So that shifting of what's called the accommodation of our eyes can really support vision as we're alive at any point in life. And that's, again, kind of like visual health, not necessarily eye health, but proper vision and proper, again, neurophysiology, because, of course, when we're also talking about up close stimulation, light, artificial light, the conversation gets wrapped around, the circadian rhythm and the blue light and the melatonin and the dopamine and kind of the balance of our neurotransmitters from these artificial light sources. So I've learned about a couple of exercises, which are really just totally common sense, which essentially, you look out a window, or you look in nature as opposed to focusing on a screen, and just allow yourself to, like, focus on the horizon and allow your vision to go from narrow to broad, and just kind of allow the peripheral panoramic vision to relax, so that we can take more in. So we can do that as often as possible, especially when we're, in a job or lifestyle that has us focusing on screens for extended periods of time. Just a minute or less or as much as possible, but just a minute will do, or 30 seconds will do every 30 minutes or hour. And that can just really help the the muscles of the eye, but also the neurocircuitry of our eyes and neurochemistry. So there's that. And then I was also thinking about the practice that you do
yes.
in the morning. If you want
yes.
can put Dr. Suzanne on the spot real quick.
Great. I'd love to contribute. So a great hydrotherapy practice to bring freshly oxygenated blood to our eyes. The way to do it is to actually start by filling your mouth with cold water. So fill your mouth with cold water. And then as you're holding that cold water in your mouth, splash cold water over your eyelids.
And you do this in the morning, every morning.
I do.
And
Yeah,
well.
I find it very refreshing. But the reason why I started doing this several years ago is because I don't know, I'd never had eye issues, but a teacher of ours said that this hydrotherapy practice can really help people who have floaters. And it makes sense because if you're bringing fresh blood to the eyes, then you're going to support that self-healing capability of the body, whether it's, floaters or whether it's just wanting to improve overall eye health. So anyway, you just fill your mouth with cold water, splash your eyes a few times. I like to do 2 or 3 rounds of that because the water will warm up as you're holding it in your mouth.
So you're alluding to this, principle that if hydrotherapy or that whole idea is new to you, we've got a whole video or a couple of videos about it. But essentially where we, introduce cold water that brings enhanced circulation. So, and where blood flows, energy goes, and where energy goes, healing happens. So we can kind of promote that self-healing process and regenerative process just by shifting our circulation from application of cold water on our body. So that's pretty cool. And I guess that's all I got.
That's all I got too.
Cool.
Thanks, Dr. Ben.
But it's all I got, but it's not all that there is, because as you were talking about floaters, and I was like, oh yeah, we could have talked about floaters, which are, an interesting phenomenon as well, very, very relatively common. So we did our best to cover as much as we could that's most relevant, but of course it goes without saying that, as with anything, we're always just kind of scratching the surface. But hopefully this helps us to think and feel empowered in terms of how we can prevent and reverse, these age-related visual changes and maintain the optimal health of our eyes always.
Yes. So tomorrow on Tuesday, we will actually be hosting our Wisdom Wednesday. It'll be a Wisdom Tuesday. And we'll be talking about the energetics that go into eye health and vision. So we hope to see you tomorrow for our Wisdom Wednesday. Cool. And next week for another Medicinal Monday.
All right. Peace and love, you guys.
Bye for now.